Hi, and welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from the Ruth Frost Parker Center for Abundant Aging, which is part of the United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire everyone everywhere to age with abundance. As part of our Aging and Innovations series, I'm really pleased to have Monica Stynchula on our show today. Monica is the CEO and founder of REUNIONCare, which is an SBA-certified women-owned small business that includes a comprehensive marketplace for durable medical goods, supplies, and home safety items. Importantly, she's also a long-distance caregiver for her mother, who lives in the great state of Ohio. Monica received her master's in social work and master's in public health from the University of Pittsburgh, and her history includes her current role as the board chair of the Vita Connect Community Care Hub in Florida. She has served on the USA Small Business Administration National Women's Business Council and a former AARP Florida Executive Council. And in 2016, Monica was selected for the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration's Telehealth Advisory Council, which developed Florida's first comprehensive telehealth statute. But the subject that she's on the show today is really thinking smart about home safety and functional support as you age, which is so connected to your overall health and wellness. Monica, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for this opportunity to have this discussion.
Terrific. Well, look, I'm going to open up with a question that I ask a lot of our guests. You could be doing a lot of terrific things with your life right now, but you're really focused on this concept of durable medical goods, of really helping people with functional limitations or people with functional support as they age. How did you find your way into this world? What drives your passion here?
Well, since you brought up Ohio earlier, I have to tell you that my career really started with Ohio. I graduated, as you said, from the University of Pittsburgh with my master's degree in social work, and I took a job intentionally at the smallest hospital in Ohio, which was a 35-bed hospital at that time. I was the director of social work, and I was the lead social worker on the rehabilitation unit. Now, this is back in the 1980s, so this was long before social determinants of health or all those things that we take for granted today. But our inpatient program was an 8-week program, and we had an interdisciplinary team. Our patients were usually retired people that were having strokes and CVAs and heart disease and cancer. They were so strong in that area. But we worked with a lot of strokes and some younger people with traumatic brain injuries, usually from car accidents. But that was the best education I could ever have because it taught me about how we treat people as a whole and how we work within their complex needs with their limited resources. I mean, this is a rural community. You have all of the constraints there, and how do we make sure that we help them in the best way possible? Our team was really creative. The patients and their families became our families. I mean, interdisciplinary team, we're meeting every week. So we did a lot of things together. So for example, we did home visits, which back then was kind of revolutionary to be going out in their home when you're not home healthcare. We conducted those home visits because we knew that a lot of the homes that they were going home to had steps and narrow hallways. I mean, these are older farmhouses. There were a lot of barriers that we had to worry about. And we made sure that was a part of our practice. Then we did things in our rehabilitation unit to simulate what life would be like when they go back there. Like our occupational therapist and speech therapist would have the patient cook a meal and have their family join them for the meal and then have the patient clean up afterward. You can imagine we were all watching them to see, did someone try to rush in and help when they should have let the patient do it for themselves? I mean, what were those interactions between people? Likewise, our physical therapist simulated what their work tasks would be when they get home and, what kind of barriers they're going to have to navigate, getting in and out of the car, getting in and out of the house, and so forth. I learned so much back then in the 1980s, and it taught me not only the value and the blessing of working in an interdisciplinary team, but how important home safety, devices, and all those things that that are now like what I do for a living, how important those are to return someone to their highest level of function, to what life that they want to return to. So that's how I got to where I am today. Because as I age and as my family around me ages, and I'm thinking back to those early years in my career and going, yeah, those are a lot of the things that we're facing today. And that's how I got here.
Monica, I just got to say, just the things that are going through my mind right now. I mean, you were doing things in the 1980s that people have now recognized as best practice, and they're still trying to kind of put into place, which is remarkable. And I know that we've known each other for a while. We've bonded over this subject, but I just want to kind of hit on the high points. First of all, a holistic model of patient support, one that looks at their goals and looks at their environment, actually doing rehabilitative work in the environment that somebody is going to experience on the day-to-day, not separated from where you're doing cup stacking or riding a recumbent bike or things like that. You're actually working, with people in those, like getting out of their car, walking up their steps. And then that must lead to just such a feeling of accomplishment when somebody kind of regains that ability, because that's and that must also be something where maybe just the acclamation, the motivation sort of goes up, in that environment versus something that is sort of more clinical in nature, right?
Exactly, because it's no longer a focus on what you've lost because of a disease. It is on what you value and what you're looking forward to going back. How resilient are you? How can we bring you back to the life that you want? And to us, that was really important, and it was a great learning experience. I loved it.
Yeah, and I think the subject of today being this functional support. I think the other thing that we've always bonded on is just that the calculus of how the crosswalk between function and healthcare spending, especially as you age. And I think that the stats I always like to rattle off, and I hope these are still correct, is that if you've got, let's say, 3 or more chronic diseases, you cost the healthcare system about 50% more on average. If you add a functional limitation to that mix, like trouble with walking or climbing stairs or transferring or things like that, then you cost the healthcare system about 330% more on average, because you're more at risk for tripping and falling and going to the most expensive site of care, which is the hospital. And I think that's about 5% of U.S. patients. It represents almost a quarter of all healthcare spending. And really, I think we've all seen that when you do have a functional injury or you lose function, your world gets smaller, and
Mm-hmm.
and then your motivation for engagement may go with it. So it's I mean, I can see why you've sort of invested yourself in this world, because you're bringing solutions to bear for people that allow people to regain their functional ability and to re-engage with the world. And I just so admire that. So I mean,
Thanks, Frank.
tell us about REUNIONCare, though. You've built something pretty great, and I know I've used it, and it's a wonderful resource. Can you just explain to our listeners what REUNIONCare is all about?
Sure. And the reason why I told you that story about Greenfield Area Medical Center is you'll understand it as I tell you about REUNIONCare. Because
Mm-hmm.
REUNIONCare is all the things that Mike and I were just talking about. It's about how do you take the person in the life that they lead, and that is with their trusted family and friends. We put them into what is called a circle of care in REUNIONCare. And they're the primary member, and they get to invite their trusted family and friends into their care journey. As the primary member sometimes can be the caregiver if the patient isn't able to do it for themselves. But just keep in mind that it's a platform to enable open communications between everyone within that space. So think of that as home. Think of that as what's going on a daily basis. And then the second part of it is the provider portal. And we made that provider portal because there's so much communication. I'll tell you this as a social worker. There's so much communication that goes on with the family that never makes it into an electronic health record, because it's dynamic. It's always moving. It's all those things, those daily basis things we're talking about in the circle of care that really don't fit nicely when you're, tracking labs or, any kind of diagnostics that way. So we made this provider portal to augment what's going on in that electronic health record. And our clients are health systems, they're community-based organizations, home care agencies. So we go from really clinical to, non-clinical custodial care at home. And our system, we made sure it was really easy to set up. You use CSV files and you put your data in there for your clients, your staff, your vendors, your contacts, and any forms that you want to be using in there. And then we help you to set up the hierarchy inside there and map your navigation. It's really easy to use. It's built on Microsoft tools. It's built on Microsoft open source platform that almost every electronic health record is built on. So, our ability to exchange information through APIs is super easy. But what's most important to us is this system addresses those social determinants of health that now everyone else is catching on to, that they can look in and the circle of care and see what's going on a daily basis. And they can share information with them. You don't have to miss calls for, the next appointment or whatever else, that phone call that didn't get through, makes a disaster or makes a drop some kind of service that needs to happen. We built it so that communications would be open between everyone within the circle of care and the provider portal so that we do the best job possible. Mike, you and I know, and we've talked about this many times over the years, caregivers, family caregivers, are expected to do so many medical tasks these days, yet they don't get the information they need.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
right, combining the circle of care and that provider portal together gives that caregiver the opportunity to see and to be able to communicate directly with the providers, with anyone who's giving them treatment. Now, we built this on the wraparound care model, and the wraparound care model was validated for this purpose by Dr. Kathy Black here in Florida at the University of South Florida. Kathy did these studies years ago and showed that that same concept that they were using for individual education plans, which we call IEPs, in education for decades, that works when it comes to senior care, because it allows us to be dynamic and to be flexible, and when needs change, we can change what the goals are and what services are going in there and so on and so forth. And to us, that's really important. That is what makes it work.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
And you must see a lot of motivations for people who are engaging the platform. People probably come from all over, but are there sort of a set of top needs that people typically present with that you support?
Well, there are, but it's funny. I mean, we're not really a window shopping kind of place. I mean, people come to us because they're in crisis. They have a need, and it's today. And so we find most people are coming to us for home safety and for mobility needs, because someone has fallen, or someone is just coming home after a real significant change to their abilities, and it's like, what am I to do now? I mean, they can't get in and out of the bed. They can't get in on and off the toilet. And that's when they're looking for us to help them find the right equipment to be able to get in there and do that. But Mike, I want to go back to something that to follow up on what we were talking about when we talk about REUNIONCare.
Yeah.
Once we create a REUNIONCare and we got the circle going and we got the provider portal going and we had people talking, we realized that we had some missing pieces. And I hope that's what we focus on, because that's where we're going in this conversation for the rest of our time today. We built another site called Credit for Caring. And Credit for Caring is really a virtual social worker. And when we did the first mock-up for it, I was with the chief nursing officer just by chance, for Medline Industries, and I showed her the mock-up that we made for Credit for Caring. And what Credit for Caring is It's the ability to do an assessment, recommend equipment, recommend resources, all those things that as a practicing social worker I did on a daily basis. But how do you allow people to do that freely on any, browser-enabled device? And so she took one look at it and said, I want you to put Medline products on there. And that's what started our journey with Medline. And, Medline is a huge company, worldwide company, and they can serve hospitals and residential care facilities. I mean, they're the kings of supply management when it comes to healthcare. But they didn't know how to take care of a consumer or what caregiver needs are in the community. I mean, it just like blew their mind to think that someone was going to get hospital care at home. I'll never forget the looks on their face when I did that presentation to them in 2018. And, I kind of had the same reaction, but for opposite reasons, like, you didn't know about this? So I would say post-pandemic, we all now are on the same page and they get it. And they're still our partner for all of the medical equipment that we put on our site.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's absolutely terrific. And yeah. I'm going to pick your brain for free advice here, although I know the advice is always also on the site. And so it sounds like, home safety is a huge part of what you do. Assistive devices are a huge part of what you do. And I know that people, many people sort of come to you after something has already, happened. But I want to talk first of all about home safety. And where do all the accidents happen? I mean, if you're looking at, I was always taught, the bathroom is the first one, and then it's cords and clutter. But is that reasonable to you? If I'm looking at, a loved one that may be needing more help, and I'm looking at their environment, where should I be prioritized? What should I be looking at first? Can you share some thoughts?
I'm going to give you a real easy guide, and you can use this in every room. When you walk into a room, start at the floor, and with your eyes, work your way to the ceiling. So when you start at the floor, first you're looking at rugs. Are there loose rugs on that floor? Guess what? You either remove them or tape those down. Are there cords or pet toys, or what kind of hazards? What tripping hazards are on the rugs? I mean, what is happening on the floor? Excuse me. That's the first thing. Okay, once we're settled and we know that we've cleared the hazards from the floor in any room, then let's move up to go to eye height. Can you see every corner of the room? Are there dark spaces in the room? And I can tell you, for a lot of people, as they age and as they're trying to conserve money, they won't light the whole room. And dark spaces are places where you can make an assumption that you know what's over there, but you can also trip and fall because you don't have adequate lighting on it. So lighting, indoors and outdoors, how do you make sure that you have adequate lighting to make sure that it is a safe place to navigate? And then you keep moving up. Once we get the lighting done, is the room the right temperature? Is the room a safe place to be? Do the windows lock? Do the doors lock? Is it easy to get to a door or window? Is there a phone? Do you see what I'm saying? If you start at the floor and you work your way up in a room, you get a better sense. I used to tell people, especially boomers, as taking care of older parents like I do. You don't walk into your parents' house anymore thinking, did she make my favorite food?
Right.
You got to walk into that house going, what are the hazards that mom could fall on? Where are the problems? But we don't. Human nature is, I'm walking back into childhood, and I need you to stop doing that. I need you to walk into that house, start at the door, well, maybe start at the porch. Are there railings so that she doesn't trip coming up the steps? It's at the threshold to come into the front door. Excuse me, chances are there's a step there. Can she navigate that, or do you need to put a bar on the side so that she's able to do that with bags in her hand?
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things that are, they're just, they're daily tasks, daily movements that we make, but we don't think of our parents as those vulnerable people.
Yes. Yeah, and it's almost like this role play. You're sort of pretending. You may shuffle your feet a little bit. You may, I mean, I know and hi, mom. I hope that you're listening. I'm trying to talk slowly, but I know just with my own mother, I know she won't mind me telling this story. I mean, they have a very steep staircase down to their lower level, and I kept saying, you need a second rail. You need a second rail. You need a second
That's
rail. You
right.
need a railing on either side of that hallway. And finally, they installed one, and the feedback was, "Well, I wish I had this all along." It's because that's the thing. It's not just it's not something that says I'm old, I need help. It's more. It gives you more reassurance, right? But yeah, the
Right.
idea that you're carrying something in your hand, and I want to move. I want to move to from that sort of great plain speak advice to this world of assistive devices, right? Because you know, I think very often people maybe choose the wrong device for them. They may choose. I know. If you have a walker, adding a basket to the walker is always going to be a good idea because you always have your things with you. I know that I walked into assisted living and people have their rollators and the seat of the rollator is just piled full of stuff, right there on the seat, and so if you're thinking about, if you have a loved one that maybe has been recommended to get
Mhm.
an assistive device, I think there's two sides of it. I think first of all, there's the, how do you go about choosing a device that is right for you, both in terms of the design and also, I don't need a Ferrari, I just need a Toyota, and then I'll ask the second part, after this, which is more about how do you encourage somebody to use it? What's that?
Right.
How do you get under? How do you get into that? How do you encourage? Yeah, how does that come about? I can't speak today, but yeah, but first, choosing the device. I mean, what are some great tips just for choosing something to begin with?
Well, I want you to think of the 3 F's: form, fit, and function. Form, fit, and function. So, form, what device do you need? Do you need something because you're afraid of falling or you already have fallen? Do you need something where you can use 2 hands? Do you need something where you're using 1 hand on the device? What is the form? Do you need to be seated? Is your endurance so low that you really need to be seated instead of walking? Fit. Fit is a real issue. Now, I'm going to tell on my mom since you told on yours. So, my mother had to go through physical rehabilitation, and by the way, she's in Ohio now. She went through rehabilitation, and my mom she's 7 inches shorter than she was a decade ago. I mean, she's just really coming down there. And so she goes through rehabilitation, and they fit her with this walker. Well, the walker's in a closet because the walker does not fit my mother anymore. She's just about at like the crossbar. Her eye level's about at the crossbar. That walker is in the closet. Fit is important. Fit is important. Find yourself adjustable equipment, not ones that are, I'm sorry to say it, but Medicare issued, that are stationary, that you can't adjust the legs because they're not going to be useful over the long term. And another area of fit that really bothers me is, if the device does not fit. So think of yourself holding a walker. Your elbows should be slightly bent, so it would be about 4 o'clock from your shoulder to where you're grasping onto the grips. Okay, that should be about 4 o'clock there, and you should be looking straight ahead, and that crossbar should be at your waist. Now, how many times have you seen people with walkers and their eyes are pointing down to the ground? They can't see more than 2 feet in front of them because they're too busy. Their center of gravity has them tipping forward. It happens with canes, it happens with walkers, it happens with rollators, it happens with any device that is not fit properly.
Got it.
So if you see someone using any kind of mobility device, and they're not looking straight ahead as they use it, you need to go back and say what adjustments need to be made.
I've never heard that before, but that is excellent advice because we see once you mention that you're going to see it everywhere, right? I mean that's
Yes.
so just to say that again for our listeners, imagine that you got 4 o'clock hands, so your arms your arms down,
Yep.
slight, kind of bent down, like you're pointing 4 o'clock, or I guess 8 o'clock, depending on. So that your arms are now, so that the right height is your arms are kind of in that 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock position,
Yeah.
and then the crossbar is at the waist. And if somebody is very preoccupied with looking down, that means they're not supported enough with their center of gravity. So this is the teach back thing that somebody taught me. Then that needs adjustment.
Right.
Wow. Very, very cool.
Right. And the other thing about that adjustment too is look at the hand grips. If someone has weak hand strength, they may be looking at their hands because they're worried they're not going to be able to advance it. They're not going to be able to push the brakes when it comes to a rollator.
Right.
That there's something about using the device that is not comfortable to them. So always look at the grips too. And if someone has a weaker grip, make sure you get a fatter gel grip to put on there, or one of those that's like faux wool that you can put on there. Something just to make it easier. But if someone can't look straight ahead when they're using this device, I'm sorry to say their fall risk is high. Think of how many people you see with a cane and they're off to the side.
Yeah.
No, you gotta be able to see straight ahead, square your shoulders if you want to have balance.
Right.
If you don't have that, no, you're going to have some problems.
Wow, that's true, and that's the thing too. When you do have a device that is properly set up for you, you have more confidence in using it, and then that helps with your engagement. Because I had a question here. When it comes to encouraging somebody to actually use the device, to adopt and use the device, one of our previous guests, Bob Kramer, had a great comment about what we call an engagement index. I don't want to go to the party because people will see me with this new device. I don't want to go to, that there seems to be a lot, but then on the other side of the coin, by using the device and using it, the proper device in the proper way, you are regaining this mobility that would allow you to do that to begin with. So it's kind of a weird, for a lot of people, I guess that's kind of a weird dynamic, right? I mean, do you have any tips for for people that may be trying to encourage loved ones to actually adopt these devices?
Yes. So you're getting to the third F, which is function.
Yes.
Function. Are they going to use it? Do you know that walker they gave my mother, she wouldn't use it. We wondered why she was relying on a cane to go to communions, Catholic, go to communion. And it took her a while till she admitted that she had to use a cane, not the walker, even though she needed the walker, because she wouldn't have a free hand to do communion, to take communion.
Yes. Right.
These are practical considerations that was so important to her in terms of a value that there was no way that she was going to go to church without getting the sacrament. But how could she do that with a walker when both of her hands are tied up? Both of her hands are on the walker. Like, these are things that we need to think about. These are function issues. Function issues. People need to understand that you need to know why people want to use it. Do they want to use the device indoors and outdoors? Are they going to be going through narrow hallways? What are the functions they're going to use it for? And make sure that you get the equipment that matches that function. Can you imagine a rigid, unfolding walker and trying to get someone into a car and then putting the walker in the back of the car?
Right. Yes.
That's a disaster.
It is. Yeah.
That's a disaster. That is function. That is, what am I going to be using this for? And make sure you get the right equipment to make that work. Back to what you said about a basket earlier. Okay, so we got someone properly positioned. They're looking up. Part of that function is, if we know that they're going to be carrying around, for example, hobby supplies or they need a tray on there because they're going to move from the kitchen to their dining table. We need to know what the functions are they want that for. Do they need to always have a bottle of water with them? Well, then you better have a cup holder on the side. Function is so important. And if we don't meet those functional needs, that equipment will go to the closet.
Right. Right. And we see that all the time too, don't we?
Yes, we do. And it's frustrating as all get out because, Mike, what you said, if we want engagement, if we want people to have more confidence and to be more engaged in life, we need to empower them with the right tools for them to be able to engage in life. We all want dignity. We all want independence. We want that autonomy, but we're not going to get it if we don't feel that confidence. We're not going to get there.
Absolutely. And Monica, we're not taught. I mean, some of these things, do cost money, but other things really don't cost a lot. I mean, there's a lot of bang for your buck here. I mean, I'm thinking, I think a lot. I'm thinking of bathtubs. I've seen those. Some people put those handles in the middle of the tub to kind of screw on in the tub. I don't really like those because you put a lot of pressure on them. They can kind of collapse this way or that way. I find that tub benches are a lot more practical and reliable and usable, and also useful when you're not in the bath. You put a towel on them, you do, but you sit on one end of the tub bench, you swing your legs over, you scooch down, you're in the tub, and I think I've seen them for $80, $120. Clothes hooks, a clothes hook to help somebody with dressing it, a few dollars.
Right.
These are where a little bit of investment can make a lot of difference, right?
Right. In fact, Mike, that's so funny. I did a series of videos for how to adapt equipment. You can go to a craft store and you can buy those tubes, styrofoam tubes that you can make crafts out of, and they have a hole in the middle. Mm-hmm. You can take and you put silverware in them, and now you have adapted silverware for someone with a grip, a loose, a weak grip, or someone that can't grip a hairbrush. Put it on the hairbrush, put it on their toothbrush. All of a sudden, you have adaptive equipment. It's that easy.
That's just for a couple of dollars.
That's right.
That is very, very cool. And sorry, you did so. Tell us where we can find the videos. Are the videos public or?
The videos are listed on our site. You'll find them right there on Credit for Caring.
So that's creditforcaring.com, right?
Yes, creditforcaring.com. Mike, there was a lot of practical things. So since we're talking about practical things, since you started down this rabbit hole, I'm going to keep going.
Please do.
Think of people having problems with dressing. Okay, fine motor skills. They're having problems with dressing. You could take those little hair ties that are really quite attractive in all different colors. You can put those on zippers, and then the person just has to, hook their thumb in there, and they're able to move the zipper up and down. You don't need fancy equipment to do that. Mm-hmm. If someone has a favorite jacket, but they can't do buttons anymore, you could put Velcro. You can sew the button to the front and put Velcro on the back. It looks just like it did before, but now it's a Velcro close, and it's easier for them to dress.
That is very, very cool. And it's just, I mean, it just the sort of the layers of experience that you've built, and the fact that you've put them all out just for free on your site for anyone to get. And then, and of course you have the marketplace. The marketplace includes the, walkers, assistive devices, home safety items, adult diaper products, just a very comprehensive set of material. And then what a lot of people don't know is that some of this is the word credit for caring comes from the Credit for Caring Act. I mean, so these things can be tax deductible, can't they? Absolutely. Can you just tell us a little bit about the rules for tax deduction? I know that we didn't prep this, but I think our listeners, if you have any advice or any guidance for that would be wonderful. Sure, Mike.
Okay, so first of all, check with your state. We have some very progressive states out there that are already doing a caregiver tax credit. So it may not be called Credit for Caring, but look for that caregiver tax credit. And a caregiver tax credit works the same way as a child tax credit works. It is a credit, so it comes off the top. It's not something that comes later. So credits are better than deductions, as we know. So anyway, there you have the tax credit on state levels, but what you can do as a family caregiver is track your expenses when it comes to caregiving. Because as long as you're providing caregiving, not just financial, but you're also doing care that you can then you can then calculate how much time and what your travel was and everything else. Those are things that you can take off your taxes as well. And so people need to be tracking this information and using it as much as they can on their taxes. Of course, it varies by what tax bracket you're in. Some it's more favorable than others, but it's always good to be tracking it to make sure you have that information. Mike, I'm still convinced that the National Caregiver Tax Credit is going to pass. I mean, the RAISE, the National Caregiving Advocacy Group, they still support it strongly. AARP supports it strongly. I really believe that we will have a national caregiver tax credit one day very soon. And
I
so,
hope so as well. I hope so as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Monica, I
I
mean,
want to be ready for that day.
yeah, I mean, I do as well. Thank you so much for sharing this advice. For listeners, creditforcaring.com, reunioncare.com as well, Monica?
Yes, yes.
reunioncare.com, creditforcaring.com. And just thank you so much for just taking this time to share this advice with us. And we do on this podcast have a tradition. We like to ask our guests 3 questions about their own personal experience with aging. And
Okay.
I'm wondering if I might ask these questions of you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So question number 1, when you think about how you've aged, what do you think has changed about you or grown with you that you really like about yourself?
I've gotten out of my own head. And to
Okay.
me, that was important
Yes.
because, when I was younger and I was always out there in front and, I love meeting people and doing things, but there was always this narrative going on. Do they think I'm smart enough? Are they taking me seriously as a business owner? And you know what? I built this business out of passion. I built this business because it's a solution that we need. And I'm no longer concerned with what those other people think or say. I know where I'm going. And I don't mean to be arrogant about that, but I think that that's the beauty of aging. I mean, you get to the point where you go, that really doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Stick with what your purpose is. Stick with what that passion drives you forward. And yeah, that's what I like most about aging.
That's awesome. Well, hey, question number 2 is what has surprised uh, what has surprised you the most about you as you've aged?
It's not all good. Okay. I wish I could say it is, but there's nothing like feeling like your body is turned against you. I mean, that's the thing about aging. It's kind of like, yeah, that's the part that, I'm just still trying to adjust to because mentally, I'm still that 21-year-old. I know I'm not
You
physically.
are not the
Uh,
only guest to have said this, by the way. You are not
that's
alone.
all.
I feel that too. I mean, I wish sometimes my knees, my feet, whatever it might be, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's the
All right. Well,
second
let's
one.
move on to question number 3 then. Has there been somebody? I just love talking to you. This has been so great. So last question: is there someone that you've met or been in your life that has set a good example for you in aging? Someone that inspires you to, as we say here, age abundantly.
Yeah, it's not a person; it's a community of people, and it's the Sisters of Charity Sisters of Charity of Seton Hill. I got involved with them when I was a teenager, and they had me out protesting for the United Farm Workers, led by Cesar Chavez. But Mike, you need to know, I grew up in a dairy farm community, so me out there telling people don't eat iceberg lettuce and table grapes was just kind of like I was kind of tone deaf in my own community. But,
Okay.
but what I learned from these women was you always protect vulnerable people. And how do
Yes.
you advocate for vulnerable people? And now they are vulnerable people. They're
Mm-hmm.
in their 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, some of them are in their hundreds. And to see how they still care for each other, the dignity that they show each other, even though many of them are in their residential care facility, they are dressed every day. They go to their services. They do activities. One of the nuns even started a Montessori. She got certified to teach Montessori for dementia, so that she could serve her fellow sisters. And these women continue. I mean, all the adjustments, like I said about the things I don't like happen to me, they happen to them too. But
Right.
these women are so resilient that they're like, no, how do we teach future generations to continue to, advocate for vulnerable people? And even in their decline, they're still doing it. I mean, I just find them amazing. And they really are my role models. They are my role models. And I think every time I want to say, poor Monica, I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
older, I think back and I go, no, those women are still fighting from their wheelchairs. They're still fighting from, their rooms, from their beds. They're still fighting for vulnerable people, and so should I.
That is absolutely terrific, Monica. And thank you so much for your willingness to answer the questions, for sharing, and for inspiring as well, and giving us so much great advice about supporting ourselves and supporting our loved ones at times when we may need a little bit more help. So, our gratitude to you, uh,
Thank
but
you.
but also, and very, very importantly, our gratitude to you, our listeners. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from the Ruth Frost Parker Center for Abundant Aging, which is also part of United Church Homes. And we want to hear from you. What challenges are you finding with your function? What helped you? What solutions have you found for loved ones that may need more help, that are quick and easy hacks? What do you love the most about you as you age? We want to hear from you. So please visit us at abundantagingpodcast.com to share your ideas. You can also give us feedback when you visit the Ruth Frost Parker Center website at www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker Center. Our thanks again to Monica Stynchula with Credit for Caring. That's creditforcaring.com, and REUNIONCare, reunioncare.com. We hope that you will join us on a future podcast, and please send us your ideas for topics that we can cover. So until then, we'll see you next time.